Learning has always fascinated me. I'm Riswana Sheikh Abdullah, and I have often asked this question: how can you make learning happen? To my peers and mentors. And I've heard many responses, but it always felt one-dimensional and only led to more questions. No, I'm not just talking about the learners, but we, the teachers. As I gathered experience over the years, it seemed to be a fairly consistent process. Habitual or even automated, you may say. You start and finish with a set of learners. You make a plan, you execute, and you prepare them for an evaluation, and the cycle begins again. And then, what about the teacher, the mentor, the educator in the process? Are we only meant to learn how to teach and assess a learner? No, I'm not talking about the latest digital tool or a workshop you attend, which again tells how to teach a learner. It may be very strange to think that in such a formal environment like school, where learning is happening all around, we are learning too. I was so wrong. And it can also be a daunting feeling. As an adult who's teaching, should we go through the learning process again? So I asked myself, you have been teaching for a couple of years. How are you going to represent your learning? And that is when I realized, though I have been teaching for a while, I have nothing substantial to account for my learning. Hear me on this, of how I transformed my classroom into a learning environment for both my learners and myself. And by looking through this prism, hopefully, you too will see this transformative change. Project-based learning, or PBL. That's where we begin. You may have seen many models of how PBL should be conducted for a learner and its positive benefits for them. But I'm going to tell from a teacher's perspective how this journey is going to make both the curriculum and yourself come alive. As they say, learning is a journey, but let me add, it's also a symbiotic relationship. Let's begin with the 5 E's. It's not the same 5 E's that we use in our lesson plan. The first E is environment. Here, diversity is the key. Engineering this is a very crucial part of the journey. Setting up the space where all of this is going to happen and mapping can take you to unexpected places and people, unlocking your learning. A well-constructed space can be your own classroom. Taking on different roles need not be a physical space always outside a classroom. Now you start putting on different hats and then seeing through different lenses in order to make that learning journey with your learners, leading on to the second E, enable. It's a responsibility with a cause. This is the execution phase, where the learning is discussed with the learners, changed, modified. You put them into different tasks through the cooperative process. But it's also a time for me to think how and why the responsibility should be given. When we have a clarity of purpose at this stage, we rethink and rework on the various avenues we want to explore with our learners, leading us to the third E, embrace. It is a motivation to stretch, right? So at this phase, we accelerate towards the cause. And here, we start not just looking at, this is one more paper to mark, this is one more rubric to do, because we have so much of clarity of purpose over here that all of the timelines, the rubric, the tasks we set up are simply the logistics to get there. Moving on to the fourth E, which I call exercise or journaling. This is a very delightful part for me. This is where the unfolding actually happens. At this stage, all of that you set, the vision that you set for the learners with the learning intentions are now taking shape. The final product is getting made. So what does a teacher do? You now start to record your perspectives just like the learner is taking down that journey. Now that becomes the record of a teacher's learning. Not as daunting as we earlier thought. It is simply what transpired through the process. Let me give you my own example. I have been teaching high school science for a while, and the topic of photosynthesis is something that happens across grades. And through my journaling process, I have realized that I have done this topic in so many different perspectives, from historical to experimental to technological, from space to garments embedded with algae. What this has inspired me is there is still many ways to learn the same topic, even if I'm teaching the same grade level over the years. Now that adds a new dimension to my teaching, which takes on to the last E, empower, which I like to call crystallization. This is the culmination of efforts for the learners, but also one of the many benchmarks for the teacher. So during this process, the learner will analyze how they have worked, how it has gone, and all of that. However, the teacher is also now recording from her perspective, so now there is her learning material. It's much more than recording what went well, what did not go well, how am I going to improve this, but becomes that strong launch pad with which the teacher will now take forth the future ventures. This interdependence now becomes a crucial experience for the learner and an important learning for the teacher. Neuroscience and education is often discussed together. In neuroscience and in education especially, neuroplasticity and connections are often spoken when you are learning a new skill. Now, how do you think this image will change to represent a teacher's neurological map when he or she is creating those experiences? Now that would be a very interesting neuroeducation question to pursue. So this change is small, but very progressive. The same topic that we have been teaching over the years now takes on a different perspective. And through these 5 E's, you truly become a stakeholder in the learning process. Imagine how your portfolio is going to be when you use these 5 E's and this new understanding to build it. Now, for some offbeat tunes. It's ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. It's ain't what you do, it's the time that you do it. It's ain't what you do, it's the place that you do it. And that's what gets results. It was sung much better than me by Fanboy 3 and the English pop group Bananarama, also called as the Bananarama principle, one of the many nuggets in Ross Morrison's McGill's book called as Mark, Plan, Teach. So it's not what you do, but it's the way that you do it. It truly takes you away from the tunnel vision of just making a project, marking a project, you write a reflection and you move forward into much more focused and determined look for a teacher and how to engage with it. And this kind of approach will also make the teacher more diverse in her work and in our plan. And the 5 E's, I think, will truly help us to do that. So though we are teaching, we are actually learning. And I thank you for seeing this through my prism. Thank you.